Hello, I'm Sarah the Gallifreyan Ravenclaw. So, I'm just going to stop this by saying I am filming this prior to the 60th, so I may make references to we don't know things yet, but this may go out after all the episodes. I'm actually recording this on Doctor Who Day. But I'm sure you've seen the title. The definition of a companion. Because in Doctor Who that gets quite confusing eventually. So, how do you define a companion? When I was younger I used to say if they travelled in the TARDIS, then they were a companion. But do they have to have travelled in time? Or can they have used it as like a escape means of escape? Because it's used as that quite a few times. Is it just they get in the TARDIS so the Doctor can get them out of whatever dangerous situation they're in? Or do they actually go in the TARDIS and travel throughout time with the Doctor? How many trips does it count to make you a full companion? That sort of thing. Because if you start breaking it down, it gets complicated. So, I'll start by saying I don't think anyone's going to disagree that I'll try and go through all the New Who ones. Rose, Martha, Donna, Amy, Rory, Clara, Yaz, Ryan, Graham, and Dan are companions. As I said, this is pre the 60th, so whether Rose Temple Noble will count as that list, I don't know. Certainly Ruby Sunday probably will once we get to her, but at the moment she isn't a companion yet, let's put it that way. But the big question is, you notice I didn't say River or Jack in that list. Because they're a very different thing. Jack's more interesting if you split it. Because when I've said to people before Jack isn't a companion in that sense, they say, yes he is, he travelled in Series 1. Okay, you have Mortal Jack and Immortal Jack. They are now two separate characters. Are they both companions? Because I think Immortal Jack in the long run actually has had now more screen time, certainly with Torchwood, but is he a companion in that sense? So, Mortal Jack, yeah, he travelled for a good few episodes. I think we can probably count him. But Immortal Jack only travelled in the TARDIS a couple of times. He travelled on the outside of the TARDIS in Utopia, and then Stolen Earth and Journey's End. I can't actually think of any other time he was in the TARDIS. And even then it was just that one time when there's like 10 people in the TARDIS. He's one of the 10. I don't think he travelled in the TARDIS any other time since he became immortal. And then obviously he did travel with Jodie's Doctor in the TARDIS a couple of times. But even then that was one episode. He travelled twice, maybe 3 times. And even then most of the time it was just hopping around the world, not travelling in time and space. It was just travelling in space. I said, is that a difference? Do you have to have travelled in time? Or is it just a means of transport? And then River's different because I'm not going to split her in two. But she doesn't travel in the TARDIS much. She obviously can fly it, so she does use it a few times. But she crashes into it at the beginning of the Flesh and Stone 2-parter, but then even then that you just sort of follow that ship, so it's not really travelling through time and space again. And she flies it in like Let's Kill Hitler, but even then that's just moving it place to place. She leaves with the Doctor in the TARDIS at the end of Angels Take Manhattan, but I think at that point she's just taking herself home, so she's not really ever travelling with him in that sense, if you like. She sort of only travels with him as a means to get to a location, not let's go travelling, which is the difference, I'd say. So I think Jack and River, in a sense, are their own category. So you have the main companions, who are the ones that travel for an entire series with the Doctor. Then you have Jack and River, and then you could argue there's some others that go in that category. But then there's the third category of sort of almost one-off companions. So, like, Wilf is officially the companion in End of Time. He got the record for oldest companion, beating Adelaide from the previous episode, More to the Mars. So they both count as one-off ones, and Astrid Peth does, so Kylie's character in Voyage of the Damned. But then what does that make other ones? If you count them, there's quite a few others that you go, well, hang on, do they count? Linda from the end of Series 1. Rigsy. Grace from Series 11, so Ryan's gran. Ashilda / me. Vinder. I know he's probably higher up on this list than most people. But what about Belle? Karvanista. Lee Clayton, who was the fugitive Ruth Doctor's husband when she was human. But by that logic, Joan Redfern, the matron from Human Nature. See what I mean? You start adding one and you get a lot more. I said when I was younger, I counted if you travelled in the TARDIS. So for years, I counted Adam. But no one else in my family did. I had this entire conversation with them where I was like, no, that other companion from Series 1. And they were like, Mickey. I'm like, no, the white guy. Jack. No, the other guy. And it wasn't until I said the word forehead that they got who I was on about. But that's what I mean. There's so many sort of couple of episode ones. If you count Vinder, do you count Adam? And if you count Astrid in Voyage of the Damned, why not lots of the others? Does Mr. Copper count? Does Branagh Cafaletta? Does Rixton? Do the Van Hoffs? If Adelaide counts, what about the other two who survived? I can't remember their names, but they also travel in the TARDIS back to Earth with her. And if you're counting Adelaide and Astrid, what about Mary Seacole? If the definition is you have to be number 2 to the Doctor, the companions are missing in that episode. If the definition is you have to be number 2 to the Doctor, Yaz and Dan aren't there in that episode. The Doctor only has Mary Seacole. And then some of the ones that we're agreeing are companions, when do they start being a companion? If Donna had never returned after Runaway Bride, which list would she be on? Would she be on the one with Astrid and Adelaide? Or would she not even qualify for that? Or, so then does she count from Partners in Crime? Or not until she's travelled in Fires in Pompeii? Right. I didn't list Mickey on my original list. I would say yes for Series 2, personally, but which of these episodes does he start being a companion? Rose, Aliens of London, Boomtown, Christmas Invasion, School Reunion, Girl in the Fireplace, Rise of the Cybermen / Age of Steel, Doomsday, Journey's End, or is he not a companion? That's 10 options. I've just gone through 10 options. I honestly think you can make an argument for any of those 10. Because Rose is his first appearance, Aliens of London is the first time he helps, Boomtown is the first time he's sort of there, because that episode the Doctor really has 3 companions. He has Rose, Mickey and Jack. Christmas Invasion, he is there on the Sycorax ship with Rose and the Doctor. He's standing there as Rose's companion when the Doctor's unconscious in the TARDIS. School Reunion is the first time he became a regular. He stayed with them. He was there and he did his own thing. He was kind of with K9, but he was doing separate stuff. And then he became a regular because by the end of that he went, no, I want to come with you. Girl in the Fireplace was his first trip, but that's a very companion-light episode. So do you not count him till the next one, which is the Cybermen 2-parter? But then that's also his departure story. Or Doomsday, because I think he's only in the last minute of Army of Ghosts. So do you count him from the next one? Because then he sort of turned up again as actually someone who knows what he's doing. Or Journey's End, when there's all the companions. He's in that lineup. Pete didn't make it in that lineup. Mickey did. Or would you say he's never a companion? He's sort of on and off. Would you even count him with River and Jack? And then, like, Rory. He's a companion in Series 6. 100%. No one's going to argue that. 6 and 7 A. But what about Series 5? Is he a companion in Series 5? If so, from when? 11th Hour? Vampires of Venice? The Pandorica? Or not until Series 6? He's kind of a companion in 11th Hour. Vampires in Venice is his first trip. But then Pandorica's when he returns, because he obviously gets killed off. And then there's the other category. Classic companions who have appeared in New Who. If you separate Classic and New Who, do they count as New Who companions? Sarah Jane, Ace, Tegan. Are they only classed as companions because they were? Or can you actually call them New Who companions? Because when I've said, does Sarah Jane count, people go, well, of course, because she was a companion before. Yes, but is she a New Who companion? Is she the 10th Doctor's companion? And she did meet 11th Doctor, but only in Sarah Jane Adventures. So you can argue whether she's also the 11th Doctor's companion. But then if you're discussing, are they a companion to a specific Doctor? Clara. Is she only the 11th and 12th? Or is she also 10 and Wars? And that's without even going into Impossible Girl, because then she's met every single one. So it's sort of the questions of, how many appearances does it take for you to get counted? Does it have to include trips in the TARDIS that involve actually travelling, not just sort of, oh, the Doctor's taking you home? Do you have to be active enough to count as a companion, or just sort of being there? Because I know some people will say, oh, Orion doesn't count then because he didn't do an awful lot in a lot of episodes. But he did still travel with the Doctor for 2 series. So, which of these would you say is actually the correct answer? So, do you have the different categories? And you say, okay, you have the main companions, like the Roses, the Donnas, the Amys. Does Rory fit in that? I think probably. And then you have the sort of regular appearances ones, like you can have Jack and River. Does Mickey go in that category? Does Wilf go in that category? Does Adam go in that category? Does Rigsy, Ashilda? Is Vinda in 1 or 2? Is Belle, Karvanista, are they 2? And then you have the sort of 1 episode ones. So like Linda, I think she is technically in 2 episodes, but it's 1 story. Lee, Joan Redfern. So it's, where do you draw the lines for these categories? And then I said, when do you count Wilf from? I know he's officially a companion in End of Time, but what with the Atmos 2-parter and Stolen Earth Journey's End, could you count him earlier? And then let's complicate things even further. Gwen, Cooper, and Luke Smith. Are they the Doctor's companions? Or are they Jack and Sarah Jane's companions, respectively? He can be her companion and her son. Do we need a word for a companion of a companion? Is that what Mickey is? Is that what Gwen and the rest of the Torchwood team and Luke and all his friends are? Even if you're going into Sarah Jane, what's Santiago? Joe, it counts as a classic companion. What's Santiago, her grandson? It can get very confusing if you do that, but this is the point. You have, if you count one-off companions like Astrid and Adelaide, then you have to start counting a lot of, apologies if you can hear a bird. If you count Astrid and Adelaide, then you have to count a load of other like one-off characters. And Astrid was sort of next to the Doctor the whole time, but was she really his main companion? Because there was the whole group of them. What about Alonso? Does he not count? He got a cameo appearance in End of Time. She didn't get a flashback then. I know she couldn't have made an appearance because she was dead, but she could have had a flashback then. Cassandra. Technically, when she was inhabiting Rose's body, she's a companion. If you go really deep into it, you get an awful lot more names every time you even think about it. This is just the list I thought of. I'm sure there's plenty more you could actually argue for all of these categories. So how would you define a main series companion? Do they have to travel in every single episode? Does that rule Rory out of Series 5? Does that rule Mickey out entirely? Because he didn't ever travel consistently. How do you define a regular one? How many appearances do they have to make a series? Or how many times do they have to travel in a TARDIS? Or how many times do they have to appear overall? Or do they just have to be number 2 to the Doctor each time? But if they are just counting number 2 to the Doctor, there's a lots of times the Doctor is without companions. You have Doctor Light episodes. Who's the Doctor's companion during midnight? If you're saying whenever the companion's absent, you count someone else, who's his companion then? Because probably before everything kicks off, the person he speaks to the most is Sky. So who would you count as the companion then? To be fair, I'd argue either Jethro or Dee Dee are probably the two he speaks to the most, but do either of them count? Probably not. So who's the companion during midnight? Donna's in like 1 minute of it. Craig. Craig counts to most people. He had 2 episodes, and that was just the Doctor was stuck without his companion for an episode. How's that any different to midnight? If Craig counts, what about baby Alfie/Stormy? And if he counts, what about his mum? What about the woman in the shop who babysits him for half the episode? Like, there are so many different ones that if you go into anything, you end up with an awful lot of people. If you expand it to sort of, oh, help the Doctor, you have got every single character ever, practically, unless they're a villain. You could even start arguing the Master's been the Doctor's companion half a dozen times. But, like, what definition do you count? So I used to say you had to have travelled in the TARDIS, but travelling in the TARDIS and the Doctor gave me a lift home are different things. So do you have to then define travelling in the TARDIS as going on a trip, 2 trips, 3 trips? Do you have to have travelled in time and space? What about the mum in the Doctor, Widow and the Wardrobe? See, I'm thinking of more examples the whole time. Does she count? She was a 1 episode companion. Or what about her children? Do you count the children or the mum? Which child? He's with the girl most of the time. Is she the companion? Like, or do you count that as he had 3 companions that episode? So, it's not ever going to be very cut and dry. Everyone's going to disagree with slight variations, but I'm curious to see what other people think. I think I would be nice and count Rory in Series 5 and Mickey in Series 2 as main companions. But then I'd argue Wilf should count as a Series 4 companion. So, where do you stop there? Is Rigsy Clara's companion or the Doctor's? Do we need a word for a companion's companion? Because I seem to have got to quite a few of those. Did Ashilda not count until she got her own TARDIS? Or did she count as soon as she got the chip in her brain? Or did she count as soon as the Doctor met her? Or does she never count at all? So, sorry this has been a bit rambly, I've just sort of kept coming up with more examples. Let me know in the comments what you think, who you'd count as a companion, if you disagree with any list I've said, if you think of anyone else who should count as a 1 episode companion who I didn't say, then let me know. Hopefully somewhere around here is another Doctor Who video. If you want to see something else I've said, if I release this in a few weeks' time, it'll probably be a review of one of the episodes of the 60th. Otherwise, it's another theory video. Other than that, thank you for watching. Bye.